of Captain Ajitha Nair, we have been able to do it. I think we are having a good attendance. It's picking up every day. I think last program we had close to more 2,000 to 3,000 nurses getting participated in the webinar
Wonderful.
from the smaller groups within the Apollo hospitals and other groups. They're forming their own the seminar halls. They're live telecasting it. So that way that the group size is increasing day by day.
Oh, very
So
good.
this is fully supported by HPA and ANEI, sir. So just for your information, and thank you very much for all that support from HPA also.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Raja.
Thank you.
Sir, I started webinars.
So
You can
there are
allot it
only
1
20
minute.
participants. Shall we wait? It is already 3 now.
We'll wait for 50, sir, then we can get started.
Yeah, because there are only 29 participants. Let some more to join.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We can go ahead, sir. We're live. YouTube also, everyone is joining.
Shall I start?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead, sir.
Okay. Thank you. So good evening to all of you. I welcome all the participants for this webinar on building business competencies among nurse leaders for sustainability of hospitals. As you are aware that International Nurses Day is celebrated all around the world on 12th May, which is the anniversary of Florence Nightingale's birth. And this webinar is the part of Nurses Week celebrations, which is the third webinar in series. As you know that National Nurses Day is celebrated on May 6th, which marks the beginning of Nurses Week. So it is a special time and a great opportunity for all of us to thank those dedicated men and women and the nursing personals who take care of the sick with great compassion and empathy. So the theme for the International Nurses Day is Our Nurse, Our Future. So nursing, we all know that, nursing constitutes about 30 to 35% of the total employee strength in an organization. If you see any hospital, the major task force is the nursing staff. And nurse to patient ratio is one of the determining factors of patient's outcome. And the management, particularly the nursing leadership, have the great responsibility on nursing resource management and also in empowering the nurses for the effective functioning of the nursing department and providing quality and safe care to the patients. Now, we have the speaker. I think we all know Speaker Ms. Ajitha Nair, who is the Managing Director, Healbiz Healthcare, CEO, KIMS Health Hospital, Kollam, and President ANEI, that is Association of Nurses Executive India, which is a nursing national level nursing association founded in 2017 under the aegis of AHPI. Dr. Girdhar Gyani, who is the Director General of AHPI and who was the Secretary General of Quality Council of India and the first CEO of NABH, and who is now the Director General of AHPI. And AHPI, of course, was instrumental in bringing together all the like-minded nurse leaders to form ANEI. And regarding the introduction of Captain Ajitha, Vijay, if you can just put the slide. Next slide. Yeah. So this is about the introduction of speaker. Captain Ajitha Nair is, she is the alumnus of AFMC Pune, CMC Vellore and IIM Kozhikode with 30 years of experience in leadership role. And she had been a principal assessor, NABH and faculty trainer. So she has been an examiner for nursing in MUHS, Nasik, and also Indira Gandhi National Open University, New Delhi. She finally turned into an entrepreneur in 2021 by starting the hospital operations management consultancy, that is Healbiz Healthcare at Kochi. And she has contributed to many hospitals in improving their performance level. And in her current role, she assists the hospitals in implementing cost-effective and sustainable strategies in hospital operations, among many other roles. Of course, I will not talk about all the other roles, but this is actually the topic of focus today. And she will be speaking on how to build business competency among nurse leaders for sustainability of hospitals. And we also have from Microlab, we also have Mr. Raja, MK Raja, who is the Vice President, Sales and Marketing, Microlab. And Microlab is our associate member, of course, of HPI. And we all know that Microlab Limited is an Indian pharmaceutical company, which is based in Bangalore, and it manufactures health products. We all know, I think Dolo is a very famous and a household name for everyone. So this is what, how the Microlab is famous for. So now I would also request all the participants to, raise questions, because after the talk, after the speaker's talk, you will have a Q&A session. And I would request you to raise questions in the chat box, or you may even put the questions to the speaker after the talk. So thank you very much. And once again, I welcome you all to this webinar. And we have some other officials from Microlab also. I welcome all of you. And thank you for the opportunity. Thank you so much. Now over to Captain Ajitha, please, for her presentation. Captain Ajitha.
Thank you, Dr. Sunil Khetarpal from AHPI for introducing myself and those kind words. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank the organizers, Microlabs in association with AHPI and ANEI, organizing this series of 7 days, meaningful deliberations on account of International Nurses Week, where the entire nurse workforce and also we are trying to bring together the operations team and the high-level management of FD hospitals. And today I'm going to speak on building business competencies among the nurse leaders for sustainability of hospitals. I hope my slide is visible.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So is business competency among nurse leaders, is it something new? I do not know exactly, but this is nothing new for me that I am doing now, or I had been knowing about it for some time. As long as I got into the senior leadership level. So this is something which every nurse should know. So I wouldn't say that it is, nurse leaders who should know this, everyone nurse, and rather I would extend it to beyond nursing as well. Every employee of the hospital should some way or the other have the business competencies. So what is this business competency all about? Let's see, what is it like? So business competency is thorough knowledge of operations management in healthcare. So when you are working in a hospital, knowing about the hospital, that's what I meant by thorough knowledge in operations management in the healthcare system, along with analytical skills, flexibility and communication skills, so as to lead the team to produce best client experience and optimal productivity. So business competency is something, a basic requirement, I feel, though we haven't placed a lot of importance for this. in our induction programs and our orientation to the hospital and all that. So if we introduce these things, I am sure it's going to benefit the hospital in the long run. And operations management or operations here, I mean to say that it is overseeing the day-to-day practices of a healthcare facility, say a particular hospital, and what are the activities which are happening there, how the coordination happens from one team to other, and how is that a patient is taken through various systems, various group of people, so that the patient takes or undergoes what is required, and then the patient comes out of the hospital. So what all are the processes when the patient goes through is what we say operations. So it largely impacts the client experience and ultimately the organization's goals. So why do we healthcare professionals need business skills? Do we need it? And if so, if yes, then why do we need it? So one is to understand the reasons behind what we see and experience in a hospital. Many a times we are left to wonder as to why certain things happen in that way, and what we see, what is the meaning of what we see or what we experience in a hospital. So sometimes all these things we do not really understand, and that is because we do not look at it in a with a business understanding. So we look at mostly or we experience these things in an emotional framework, and we feel dejected, disgusted with many of the things what we see around or what we experience around. Say, if I say an example, if a nurse leader requires, say, 10-15 nurses more, and obviously the management is going to say why you require it, 10 questions are asked about it, and you feel, is it for me, myself, I am asking for the patients only, right? So you may not feel very happy when 10 questions come on your way. And it is simply because we are not able to understand the business perspective of adding to the manpower and the cost. So if we develop these skills, yes, before somebody asks, we have our answers ready. And we exactly understand why we are doing certain things. And simply speaking, it is the question of survival or sustenance of the hospital. Today, in our country, about 70 to 75% of the entire healthcare of the population is delivered by private sector. And out of that, around 70 to 80% are the small sector hospitals, which are 100 or less than 100 bedded hospitals or single people owned. The doctors make their own hospitals, and they are very small facilities, and vast majority of our hospitals in our country are of this. And do they make a lot of money as it is projected? Actually speaking, I do understand that it is a very tough job to run a hospital, and it is not that they make huge profits or something. It is not. And many of the hospitals, I know a lot of them personally, have been shut down, post-COVID or during COVID, that they could not sustain the pressure of the economic burden and lack of business and various other things. So the cost of healthcare, the cost, how much is the running cost of healthcare facilities is increasing day by day. It is spiraling up actually. And if we do not have understanding of these business principles, we sure are going to face more and more loss rather than making profit. So it's a question of survival. If the nurses in a healthcare system understands this principle, it will add a lot of value to how we run the hospital and how the patient experiences healthcare. There is a lot of pressure to reduce the cost, of course, and while improving the quality and safety. So we do not want to, compromise the quality and safety while we try to reduce the cost. So there is a lot of pressure on the system. So if a lot of pressure on the system, when I say it is the people in the system, so which means there is a lot of pressure on the doctors, there is a lot of pressure on the nurses, and also other departments to reduce the cost of various things. All of us know that, if we ask for a particular quality staff, no, it is not given to us for general practice or or if you want a superior quality hand rub, it is only given to the operating room. I mean, we all come across all these things. So there is lot of pressure on reducing the operational cost of a hospital. Identify the optimal requirement of resources. Now, how do we know that how many nurses are required, or how many doctors are required, or how many other people are required to run a system safely and with quality of service? So how do we know this? So to understand this, we need to have, business competencies. Understand the utilization of resources. So you might have procured 10 ventilators, and how many of them are put to use, or you have so many theaters. And what is the utilization of it? So every resource, you have X number of faculty or staff, and what is their utilization? So are they coming for work for, say, in a month, 25 working days, and few leaves people would be taking, so rest of the days are they on job? So unless and until you measure it, you will not even come to know. Or sometime when you do it, you come to know that, so people are supposed to put in about 190 to 200 or 210 working hours in a month, as per the number of working days in a calendar month, and it may be sometime 160, 150. So that means the rest of the hours is not being contributed by them. What a huge loss. And unless you calculate these things, you will not even come to know. So that is the optimal requirement and utilization of the resources, especially the human resources. Preventing wastage. So what is this wastage? Wastage in terms of repetitive tasks, non-value added work, and wasting of materials. So you may see that all around people take prints, paper prints left, right, center, and a huge cost is there. So I would rather request all of you who are listening to me now should go back to your institution and see in your own department how much printout is being used. It is all adding to huge cost of operations. And identify it, reduce it. So what we can do is reduce the consumption of all these things, and it is not going to affect our quality of our service or something. No, and maybe you can save one side of the paper for all rough work. You can use it, while printing rough work, you can use economy print where the ink is taken less. So a lot of principles like this is what is business competency, and see that how much money you save on account of all these things. Monitor optimization. So we may say so many things, how many of these aspects we are monitoring. We are keeping a tab on it every day, and deviations are reported and actions being taken so that the optimization of this resource utilization is done. Cost benefit analysis. Are you buying equipments which are actually not in requirement, or are you coming under pressure from a particular doctor and end up buying a lot of things? So all these things are done if you have, or it is you can take part in those things if you have this business competency. So let's understand this entire process. So business is equal to it is equated with re-engineering structures and processes for better outcome. So as per Donabedian theory, structure, process, outcome theory, I know most of you know about this. So in this, what is explained is that outcome of anything is the interaction or interplay between the structure and process. So here what we mean by structure is the administrative structure probably, or the building, or the equipments, the organogram, the facility as such, the employees, the manpower, all this is structure. So structure, all these together, how do we produce outcomes? So it is through the process. So processes are the interaction between different departments. Processes are the way we go about doing things, the way we go about delivering healthcare. So we can divide it into various processes like clinical processes, operations processes, HR process, quality management, marketing, training and development. So all these are various kind of processes. There are many more, many more in fact. So an interplay between your structure and your clinical processes results in outcome. So if these things are in alignment to each other, you will get good outcome. Or in other words, when you do not have good outcome, or you were performing better and it is coming down in your own evaluation, then you go back to structure and process and identify, is there a problem somewhere, and readjust yourself. That is what is re-engineering means. Readjust yourself. Earlier I said one of the abilities is being flexible. Being flexible to respond appropriately to the changing needs of the environment. So this is what I mean by flexibility. So this will result in, so if the interplay or the relationship between structure and process is appropriate, it will result in outcome, good outcome. So good outcome is simplification of processes. It's not, complicated, or, people can't understand what somebody is doing or what is happening. Integrated systems and departments. So in integrated systems and departments, each system complements each other. It doesn't compete, because our collective responsibility or objective or goal is optimal patient outcomes. So integrated systems are complementary to each other. They do not compete, and one pitches in for the other. So if there is some weakness in one system or in some people, the other department supports or helps in plugging those gaps, so that the patient does not experience the limitations or gaps we have. Efficient patient and staff flow. So there is smooth flow, there is no hiccups, or there is no problems. And if problems are identified, we are able to understand where is the problem. We are able to dissect it and understand without having any ill feelings, and we are able to correct it so that the process is back on track. So integrated process flow is it is not that nurses will do what they are supposed to do and doctors will do what they are supposed to do, and probably biomedical does their work, and independent of each other. That is not what is integrated. So integrated is that working with one objective in mind, and it is all entangled, or each one knows what they are supposed to do, but each one pitches in for the other one. So you do have better understanding of the other person's activities, and thereby improving the teamwork. And this obviously results in good clinical outcomes. And of course, the most important outcome is minimizing preventable errors by doing all these things, as well as complications. And also some of the other outcomes are reduction in length of stay, reduced operational cost, and increase in net promoter score. Net promoter score is nothing but the number of people who are likely to come back to your organization for another requirement related to healthcare is more. So if somebody says, I would strongly opine that given another opportunity to come back to a hospital, I will come back to this hospital only. So that, and the percentage of people who say that is what is net promoter score. So good or optimal or increase in net promoter score is a good indicator of that your structure and processes are working well. And of course, improving EBITDA margin. EBITDA margin is your something related to how much money you produce or how much profit you have. So that also improves. If all of these things improve, obviously the EBITDA margin also improves. So the business competency, as I said, restructure and optimize the processes. So we have seen various processes before. So restructure and optimizing these processes is what is business competency means. So what are these things? So these are, I'm sure every nurse knows this, but how much do you know about all these things? So clinical processes, by and large, nurses are quite good at. OPD processes, admission process, discharge process, clinical department process, which means that operating room will have one process, or your endoscopy room will have another process, or various departments, say Department of Radiology will have a different process, and so on and so forth. So each of the clinical departments will have their own way of working or set of things to do. That is what is clinical process. Medication management is another process where more than one department is involved. So there are pharmacists who is involved, who may be raising the requirement, then there is a process of vendor selection and all that. So how to choose the vendor, how do they deliver things, how are you accepting it, and how that you're going to place it in your inventory. And then how is it stored and how is it intended, how is it transported from the pharmacy to the floors, and how is it being utilized, and how the doctor prescribes the drug. Is there a double check on that prescribed drugs, whether all those rules are followed? So before the the drug is dispatched from the medical store or from the pharmacy, and how are the nurses giving it? Are they following all the steps? Are they monitoring the effects of medication and reporting any abnormalities found? So the entire thing is what is known as medication management process. So a lot of people are involved in this, in fact. So how do we optimize these things? And there are, I'm sure till here, most of the nurses are pretty aware of. So now the remaining part of it, the non-clinical process. So here is what the nurses little bit lack the understanding. Human resources. So there are a lot of processes in human resources. How all these things are done. So what I feel is that every nurse, head of nursing department, everyone, every CNO should be a good HR person as well, so that they understand what is being done in HR and they take responsibility for running the department, the human resources aspect. Finance. The hospital has a finance department. What do they do there? That's anyone's guess. Rather, the nurses have no idea or understanding about it. So it is important that you understand those things. What are they monitoring? So do you get, as a nursing head, the reports, we call it MIS. So the MIS is the indicators of financial health of an organization. So how many OPD patients were there, what was the conversion rate to IPD, and how many people visited the ED, and did anybody go on LAMA, why did they go, and that is a lost business opportunity. Did we do anything to prevent that, etc., etc. So a lot of things are there, finance related processes, which is creeping into our everyday life. So how do we connect all these steps to each other? How much we understand, and what does a nurse, how can a nurse play a role in this? Sorry. As also the support services like food and beverages, CSSD, clinical engineering, the hospital engineering department, which includes mechanical, electrical, and plumbing departments, the consumption of energy, both in terms of electricity. They use diesel. Diesel is used for, using it in your generators, so on and so forth. Water, electricity, all these things are coming under engineering. So if we know the working of all these departments, we will know why should we promote saving of all these things. Okay, water we should save, everybody knows this. And electricity, we should prevent the wastage. And we should promote people walking up the stairs if it is up to 3 stairs instead of using the lift. So all these things are part of your operations management. Sorry. Housekeeping. Housekeeping again is very important. Housekeeping is cleaning up the place, but also equally important, there is a lot of science to it, a lot of mechanics to it, and a lot of cost to it. How can you optimize these services? Pharmacy, purchase, Department of Quality, Operational Finance, all these things are non-clinical processes. And also, we would probably learn the cost of adverse events. If any adverse event happens, and how does it affect the business? So many times things can go out of control. We have seen it often in hospitals that many times we can't even explain this. There is a maternal death which happened, or a newborn death, and hell breaks loose. and it affects our productivity, our everyday functioning, and it probably may affect the business itself. Or maybe there is a large scale fire. It can cause closing down of the hospital to that extent. And so negative publicity can affect the hospital business a lot. So all these things are part of business competency. So understanding the nitty-gritties of all these will help in positively contributing to all these things, whereby improving the process and thereby better clinical outcomes. Identifying the cost of operations. Now we see how can we identify how much money we are spending in running of the hospital. And why are we seeing this? Many of these things, nurses either do not participate, or even if it is there in front of them, we probably feel that it's not our work. Or we say that this is not nursing work, this is none of my job. And the moment we say like that, it is not that nobody else will do that job, right? Somebody else will do the job. But if we have the understanding, we can explore how can a nurse contribute better, or how can, as the head of the department, contribute better. So I'll tell a few examples from here. So human resources. So all these things 1 to 6 are human resource processes. I'm talking about the cost of operations. Okay. So human resources seemingly is one of the largest aspect of operational cost in a hospital. That is the largest cost rather. The cost of human resources is more than the energy consumption cost and any other cost. Rather, this is the highest cost. And next is material cost. Okay, so material is your pharmacy and all that you buy for running the hospital. So highest cost is human resources. So, and it is a big challenge to balance the cost of human resources to the operations of the hospital, or the profitability of the hospital. Today, every hospital is struggling, in fact, to reduce the cost of operations, and definitely a large chunk of it come to human resources. So if we have understanding, we can contribute to that, positively contribute to that without affecting the quality or outcome of our management. Like they say, for example, the manpower, as Dr. Sunil Khetarpal said in his introduction, that the nurses are the largest, the human resources component in a hospital. So, or in other words, largest department or largest number of people in the payroll in any given hospital, especially in the private sector. So when it comes to manpower, how can we recruit appropriate people? And if appropriately competent staff are not available, what is the best alternative? How can you pitch in to, do the best without affecting the patients? So all these things are part of this recruitment. So especially the nursing leadership play a big role in not only just, identifying who should be recruited and who should not. Our role should not limit to that. But whereas, sourcing, because I feel personally, we can identify the best resource, or who you can, through your networking, identify, you need a 2IC, say, for example, or you need a OT manager, or you require, say, an ICU manager, nurse manager. So from your network, you can find a better person rather than just giving a general advertisement and going behind it. So it's very important to develop competencies in these aspects. And also another important, less talked about subject is salary. We seldom talk about salary. So nurse salary has undergone many times revision in the recent past. In the recent, say, 4 or 5 years, salary had been revised many times. In the recent past, in the last 6 months, in the current institution where I'm working, we have reworked the salary twice for nurses because of the societal pressures, because of their opportunity because of lack of availability of nurses. If you don't get nurses, how do you run the hospital? So you are compelled to, increase the salary of nurses. It's a good thing. I wouldn't say it is a bad thing, but, you have to balance it. You have to keep it, you cannot just spiral the cost or, recruit everyone with a high salary and then, keep in low numbers. No, nursing is a, number intensive department where you need to have the hands to work. So you cannot have, few people with high cost and that's all what you have. You cannot work like that. So we have to have this right understanding of how much is the allocated cost, how much you can stretch yourself, how much you can provide salary. So what I feel is the nursing department should be an integral part of the team which decides how much, the wage fixation or salary revision. Training is another important thing. Do you train or do you try to retain? But training goes on, and the cost of training, how much you can have your training team developed. So is it better to have, one clinical instructor per 50 staff, or is it better that, you keep on training them and with at a lower cost? In the sense, it is not so low as well. But if you are thinking that you will take only experts, you won't get nurses. So you have no choice but to train the available nurses. That's what is happening right now. So to have all these understanding and the cost impact of it is what is going to matter at the end. Employee welfare. So employee welfare also, it costs money. So what all employee welfare we can have, how we can have, what is the employee's contribution in various kind of welfare activities, like say, for example, insurance. So insurance, is the hospital pay for the insurance? Do you have a group insurance? And how much contribution you should take it from the staff, etc. Employee turnover, another burning issue. In fact, so it is very high. I work in a hospital where we have an annualized attrition between 65 to 70%. So that's very high. I mean, sometimes it stretches all our limits, that it is much beyond our capability to manage. So it does happen that way. So how do you manage such situations? What is your contingency plan? So all these things are part of operations and part of business skills. Legal expenses. So we do spend a lot of legal expenses. Like say, for example, one example is, employee verification. So employee verification, if you do it through a third party, it will cost you 1,000 to 1,500 per head. One example I am telling. Otherwise, various other legal expenses are there in relation to HR department. Okay, so these are various activities in the HR, and the nursing admin team, at least senior management team in nursing, should have fair good idea about what is happening and how it happens. Then we will get answers for a lot of questions what we have in our mind if you know why of it. So seeking that why is what is developing business competency. Now we come to material. So materials is the second highest cost in a hospital. So material includes both pharmacy and stores. So medicines as well as store handles all other purchases. Okay, so it includes medical consumables and maybe stationery, maybe your energy and all that. So or your oil and such things. So all these purchases is material cost, and it is the second highest expenditure in a hospital. Energy I have already explained, so I won't go into that detail. Maintenance cost. So building requires maintenance, equipments requires maintenance. So it is a huge cost at the same time. And cost of licenses, yes. So it is a recurring cost in some cases it is a one-time cost. So there is considerable cost of it. Another cost of it is cost of litigations. Now, if you have a lot of litigations against you, you have no choice but to fight it out in the court, and it costs a lot of money. And another important thing is cost of lost opportunities. Now, what is this lost opportunity? This is where you fail to bill the patient. You provide a service, but then you did not bill the patient. Please remember, nothing comes free. Okay, nobody is working free of cost in the hospital. So as far as the private sector hospitals are concerned, each Naya Paisa as income will come from the patients only. So unless we bill the patient, it will not come. Okay. So we have to bill the patient judiciously, which means that you must bill the patient if a service is provided to the patient. Now, please remember that you do not add cost to the patient. That is, if you think that you are adding cost to the patient, that will contribute to business. No, this patient will become, not convinced patients will become difficult patients for you, and they'll move out of your net promoter score. They'll tell this is the best place, and they won't come back to the hospital. And not only that, they'll tell 10 other people, please don't go there. They are, big money mongers. They will not, there is no appropriate treatment over there, and so on and so forth. So cost of lost opportunities is the patient who has come to you, who you could have provided care, but went away from you because of certain, problems they faced. Like say, for example, a patient came to emergency department. If they don't like the doctors and nurses' behavior, they'll go to another hospital. Why? Because there is enough hospital out there. There is a lot of competitions. It's not only you are providing the service. So lost opportunity examples are these. There are, I can say many more examples. So which otherwise genuinely would have become your business, and you have lost it for some reason. That is what is cost of lost opportunity. Okay, so sometimes you may think you are getting a lot of neuro patients and you do not have a neurologist. That is again lost opportunity, because nothing is preventing you from keeping a neurologist. So you do have this kind of lost opportunities as well. As far as the nurses are concerned, you do a lot of bedside procedures, right? So if you fail to bill the patient, you do say bedside glucose monitoring, and sometimes it is not billed to the patient. You have done say 20 or 30 bedside RBS, but only 10 are billed. So the 20 procedures which could have contributed to your income, you have lost it. So all of these are cost of lost opportunities. Now, how do we control the cost of operations? I personally believe that nurses do play a very, very important role in controlling the cost of operations, and wise people in management as well as in finance will involve the nurse leadership team in managing the cost of operations. So out of that, few examples which I thought of is what is seen on the slide. One is mapping and monitoring consumption of common items. What is this common item? Common item are those medical consumables which are used in common, not to a particular patient. Like say, for example, the hand rub which is kept at the nursing station. So a lot of people use it. So can you bill that to a particular patient? No, because it's not used for a particular patient. So it will become a common item. And how do we show it in our inventory? So these items are, when you receive it, it is been transferred onto your unit inventory or sub-store, as you call it. And then it is being used. So it is used. Now, if it is used for a particular patient, you can bill it against the patient. Now, if it is used for common purpose, then the word used is consumed. So consumption is an icon in your system, in your HIS. So you go on consuming it so that it is removed from your inventory. And how much item is consumed, you will get it at the end of the month. You can, stop it there and then take a printout of it. Or you get it for a particular duration, maybe a month, maybe a week. Now that will show you how much of cost, how many items are used and what's the cost of it. So if you monitor it on a monthly basis, you will know what is the cost of consumption, or in other words, what is the cost of running a particular nursing unit. How much of items are used and what's in money value, the quantity of those items. And you can even convert that into cost per patient per day. How do you do that? The total cost of item divided by number of patient days in a particular unit. Okay, so patient days means how many days the patient was there in the unit. So the number of discharged patients and number of days they stayed in your unit. So the total cost of consumption divided by the patient days in that particular unit will give you how much of cost you had per patient per day. Now keep it as a target, something, fix a benchmark, and you should be able to explain why in some month it is more. Is there anything that you consumed more, or try to keep it under control? So if you go into such details, you will be able to, identify when some things are misutilized, or, how much of. Another example is tissue paper. So if you keep the tissue, some people just finish it. They have no consciousness of that this has money. So every activity what a nurse does in a unit is equated with a money value. It is not only when you give a medicine to the patient or you do a procedure to the patient. No, every activity has got a money value. So how do we identify that? How do we monitor that? And how do we control that? So this is how you control the operational cost. Checking and preventing wastage, breakages. So anything what I say is going to be related to some money value. So if some people are careless in your department and you have a lot of breakages, then of course the repair of it will cost money. Some may be broken such a way that it is beyond repair. Then you will have to buy another one. So all this add to your cost and various kind of wastages. You may waste money, you may waste the material or medicines or time. Even if you go to a patient's bedside without collecting every article for starting an injection or drawing a sample, you reaching the bedside, you remember, oh, I did not take this. You are again walking back. Your time, that's a wastage, right? So any of these resources, when you waste, there is a money value attached to it. So developing an understanding, you will be able to be conscious as to how to reduce such wastages. Optimal utilization of equipment. So when you give purchase requests, please monitor the utilization of your equipment, especially the high cost equipments, like you may have ventilators, you may have syringe pump, infusion pump, things like that, and various other equipments. So how much is being utilized? So utilization is in percentage, which means the available hours of utilization into what is the maximum utilization possible. Okay, so that is what is, say for example, one ventilator can be used in 1 day, 24 hours. And probably in 7 days, when you calculate, you may require it for maintenance and all that, some other time too. So probably you may calculate 18 hours or so. So how many hours it was utilized? That is what is utilization. So this need to be calculated, or even if not in percentage, how many hours per day it is being utilized. And if it is utilized less in one unit and more in another unit, and instead of asking for more equipment for that unit, you can redistribute the availability of these equipments and thereby improving the overall utilization of equipments. And these all save considerable money in your organization. Now, very important one, optimal and judicial manpower utilization. So manpower utilization is as to how many percentage of people are on duty every day, how many people avail leave, how many are sick leave, absenteeism, and what is your competency matrix. All these things does matter in manpower utilization. So if you have less competent people, you may need them more in number. And if the manpower is not utilized well, you will require more people to complete a particular task. Say to handle, say 100 patients, if your manpower utilization is poor, then you may need more people than actually required. So this is something which you very closely need to monitor, so that your number is maximum, optimum. How many, you have required number of people. You are not facing shortage, or you are having every day the requisite number of staff available at the bedside. So ultimately, that is what matters. And you have enough contingency plan in place. So contingency plan means there is sudden, loss of manpower. Many people fell sick together. So in times of this pandemic, and we do have very often chickenpox outbreak and all that. So what is the plan for such time? And some time back, we used to have contingency plan even for nurses strike, because there are a countrywide nurses strike happening here and there. So that is another situation where you require contingency plan. So all these together is what is this manpower utilization. Prevention of patient complications, again, because complications will cost a lot of money to the hospital as well. All of us maybe think that if a patient faces complication, they are only paying and we are not ending up in loss, which is absolutely wrong. So if we are able to prevent complications, our profitability would be there. And high number of complications will prolong the average length of stay of the patient. And once the length of stay crosses certain limits, it is only loss and no profits. Okay, so business does not come from, longer stay of patients, not really. So they should stay the shortest in the hospital, shortest possible. So optimal stay it should be, and not more. So on account of complication, if they stay back, then we end up in loss. Early identification and management of complication, that too, so that your ALOS can be saved. So this slide shows, I have, I think, 1 or 2 slides more. The selection of appropriate equipment, competent staff, monitoring of cost, improving the ALOS, safety of the staff, safety of patients, surveillance, facilitating the change in practice. So all these things, probably when you get to know more operations, you may have to change it. So, change management competency, that is also part of your business competency. And learn numbers, very important. So you have to learn how to read a table, how to convert it into graph, and what is the meaning of it, how to understand depth, understand in depth, what is trend analysis. So all these things will contribute to understanding a particular phenomenon. So these are a few examples of business competencies: resource planning, staff utilization, material consumption, identifying and elimination of waste, that is non-value added activities, repetitions, revision of clinical documentation, percentage of departmental manpower cost to the total HR cost, saving of power, surgical packages, quality improvement projects. So all these are examples of demonstrating business competencies. So what are the advantages? If the nurses have business competencies, what are the advantages? One is a benefit to self. Your market value will improve, or your efficiency will improve, your acceptance among the team will improve, and management will recognize you more because you're preventing wastage, you're contributing to the top line, or you're controlling the bottom line and things like that. Benefit to patients, because ultimately the patient will pay less if business principles are followed in a hospital. And it's not that, the business is extracting maximum from patients. That's a misnomer. It is absolutely not. When the patient is happy, bring in more patients is what your revenue will build up. Benefit to the hospital, obviously, when nurses will have business competencies, and they do contribute a lot to both top line and bottom line, and thereby the business. Balance between quality and cost. Yes, quality costs. Yes, nothing is free. So improved quality means increased cost. That's what is usual understanding. But striking a balance between both of these, that you want to have quality at the same time, you don't want to have so much increase in cost. So by developing competencies in this aspect only, you can have that. And you will look for cost-effective alternatives when you are aware of these principles. And yes, at the end, you forgo your ego for the sake of it. You have better relations, teamwork, work satisfaction. You learn to respect to each other and optimize the satisfaction and work efficiency. So that is what is the benefit of everyone going to be. So developing business competencies among the nurse leaders undoubtedly will improve their own life as well as the organization's management. So this is something which we should pay attention to, and we should focus on developing the competencies among the nurse leaders so that it will benefit everyone. So that's all about my talk. Over to Dr. Khetarpal. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Ajitha. Thank you so much. See, she has very nicely elaborated on the healthcare business competencies and the reasons for having the business competencies, like, the identifying the optimal requirement of resources, preventing waste without compromising with the quality, and also doing the cost benefit analysis. And she explained very well about, all the indicators like structure, process, and outcome indicators to achieve sustainability, and how to optimize the processes, various processes, and how to identify, reduce, and control the cost of operations. So I think very nicely explained. And finally, she gave us very good examples of business competencies. And of course, lastly, she very well, elaborated on the advantages of developing the business competencies. I think it was a wonderful talk, and it was not a very common topic, which anybody can speak. So it is only Ajitha, I think, who has the in-depth knowledge of the business competency. And I'm sure that this is going to benefit all the participants, and in your day-to-day role in the operations when you are managing your department as a senior nurse, as a nurse supervisor, nurse leader. I think if you implement, some of these tips which she has given to you, you will definitely, we are talking of the sustainable model of healthcare, sustainability. The idea is to have because cost is very important. And by small measures, like she mentioned, but small things, if you do, you can really reduce prevent the waste, reduce the cost, and make the operations, make it sustainable. So I think, thank you very much, Ajitha. Now, I would request the participants, of course, to raise any questions if they have, or they can raise hand, or I think I can see one question. There's one anonymous attendee. Good evening, ma'am. As you told, early recognition done by a nurse means management will shoot directly to that nurse. Why they will never understand, always nurse will not do mistakes. Other department staff also do mistakes. But always, as I see in my experience, the nurses punish much. Nurses are being punished more than others. I think Ajitha will answer that. So I think very emotional question. And doesn't matter. It's you are free to ask anything.
Yeah. So let me answer that. That is, though we are laughing over it, it's a matter of concern. That is true, actually. But whoever is anonymous attendee, it is written. So nurses end up being punished more. So that is, I find the only reason for that is a weak nursing leadership. There is no other reason. If management punishes somebody, first of all, punishment should be given only for indiscipline and not for errors, not for, when suppose a monitor fell down, so I have come across people who levies it from the nurse. So that is lack of understanding. So if the nursing head is strong, they won't let somebody do that. So why are they not fixing up the biomedical engineer who did not fix this monitor? First of all, it's just kept on a table and it can fall, right? So the right process is very important. Why are we not able to identify it earlier that, yes, if you don't fix it, there is a chance of it falling down. So all falls back. Rather, the leadership should take accountability for what the staff undergoes. So I agree absolutely. It is because you do not have a strong leadership. That's the only reason why the staff end up being punished for these things. That not only in nursing, any department for that matter.
Now, actually, it is not the blame game. When see the problem in our country is that these errors are very underreported in our country, because the nurses, or any error happens, they have that apprehension.
That is because they are punished.
Yeah, they think that they will be punished, or So I think the time has changed now. Even the NABH standard, they say that we should rather appreciate if somebody comes out, brings out some error, and reports an error. So idea is to improve. See, you cannot improve until and unless you identify a problem. See, errors are bound to happen. We are all human beings, and human errors are bound to happen. See, there are system errors, process errors, human errors. I think the idea is to minimize the error, or until and unless you report it, you will not improve. Do the RCA and then take corrective action and preventive action. I think that is the crux. So don't worry and don't take it personally. But then if your nurse leader, as Ajitha very rightly mentioned, she has to be strong. It is a leadership, that how she takes it and how she manages these errors, and manages the human resources. That if somebody has committed any mistake or any error, and that is not to be, an idea is not to punish. Anything else? I think I can see one more question. How to control? But this is something about mental health. When Bijan Devnath, how to control nurse depression. This is
I don't think that is in the purview of
mental health issue. Mental health issues.
That is not in the purview of today's talk, though it's a very relevant
but
question.
Anyway, since he has asked, I would just like to say something on that. See, I can understand nurses, they work under a lot of pressure, especially when you are working in a critical care area. The way you are dealing with the patients, dealing with the doctors, with the other staff, it is not easy. It is, it is very taxing on you. So you have to, find means and ways to de-stress yourself. It is very important. Even the management, it is the role of the management or the nurse leader to take care of the staff, that they don't go into depression, or there's no anxiety and all other disorders. So I think this is a very relevant question. Mental health is a very important issue which the management has to take care of. And you also yourself, if you are working in certain, a lot of pressure, and then you need to see how you can de-stress yourself. There are some organizations who take care of these things. So I think this is actually the role of the nurse supervisor or the nurse leader. And another question raised by an anonymous attendee is, providing quality being cost effective is a real challenge. We often as nurses go out of way to spend from our pockets to see good results. Example for stationery, etc. In long run, it is a burden. How to prevent?
Please don't do that. That is my advice. Please don't spend money from your pocket to buy stationery. That's your ability to get it from the management if it is required. Okay, so that don't put in your money to do that. That's absolutely wrong. I mean, I know who probably would have raised this question also. So this is if you're doing it, you are succumbing to pressure. That is what. So there is your skill developed. Okay, there is your skill in communicating it correctly, and your communication ability is how much the other person understands, right? So it is, it is very easy to succumb to the pressure, and that is very easy way. You buy it and keep it yourself so that you don't have to ask 10 times. No, you walk across, report, meet the higher management, take your nurse head along. So it is, this is a leadership responsibility basically, to provide what is required for best patient care. Yes.
Absolutely. I think there are no more questions in the chat box, but Microlab has given their email ID. I think you can note down in the webinar chat box that email ID and the contact number. If you still have any query, you may always send the mail to pmtcriticalcare@microlabs.in. And the contact number, you can also contact at 09700774920. So you can post your queries here, and then we will be able to answer that. I think it has been a wonderful session today on this webinar on a very important topic. Once again, I thank Captain Ajitha and thank all the participants. Of course, the formal vote of thanks will be done by the Microlab, but it is also my duty as an AHPI, because we are all partners, AHPI, ANEI, and Microlab. It's our joint initiative to conduct the series of webinars for the Nurses Day. And thank you very much. I can see the number of participants, not very encouraging, but still 120 participants are there, including 7 panelists. So
into a lot of groups, sir. Small, many groups are getting.
So from one login, you may have 10, 20 people.
So many.
Yes.
So of course, so there may be, I don't know how many, but maybe 200 plus participants, I think. So
About 2,000 plus.
2,000. Oh, wow. Wow, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Very nice. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. I mean, to be part of this session. And thank you all. And I would now hand over to Mr. N.K. Raja for his final remarks.
Yeah.
Mr. Raja.
So, yes. So good evening, one and all. And it's been 1 hour of very precious time shared by Captain Ajitha Nair. I think there's no doubt that she has been spearheading the entire ANEI right from day one and trying to bring in the much awaited the skill improvement for various nurses across the country. So we extremely thank you, man, for having spared your time. And I think competency building is something very important for all the future nurses, despite all the challenges nursing industry today we have. But having the talent retention and trying to go on for a very long duration in terms of the stability of the manpower is a major challenge. So probably when nurse becomes stable, the competency becomes even more included in their own talent, and we are able to get more qualitative nurses for the country. So I think this topic is more relevant to all the senior executives who are willing to settle down in India. And I think your topic had given a lot of insights. So thank you very much, Captain Ajitha Nair, for having spared your time. Not the least, Dr. Sunil Khetarpal, I think, sir, despite your busy schedule, you could really understand the requirements of nurses as part of the HPA, and you felt that there's a need for you to also contribute. So I think we personally thank you from the bottom of our heart for having spared your time. And not the least, Dr. Giridhar, Dr. Alexander, the entire team of AHPA who have been supporting us for the entire program along with ANEI have been really making a lot of qualitative inputs for the last 3 days of program. And we are likely to go on till May 12th at the same time. So we'll catch up with you by tomorrow, 3 to 4 for the another topic. So I thank my colleagues, Mr. Vijay, and all our colleagues of Microlabs for being the follow-up. And thank you once again, all the nurses, for sparing your valuable time during this busy schedule by attending this program. I'm sure you are immensely benefited out of it. Thank you once again. Thanks one and all for your time. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Raja. Thank you, Ajitha. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Ajitha ma'am. Thank you, Dr. Sunil sir.